if you think about like a state of the union on American men, what are your kind of thoughts on the status, the state of your typical male father, working professional? What are your thoughts there? What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the MTNTOUGH Podcast. I am your host, Dustin Diefenderfer, and I'm so glad that you're here. We absolutely love seeing you dive back into these episodes week after week, and it is our goal to bring you an inspiring guest every single episode that adds some tools to that mental toughness toolbox. If this is your first time to the MTNTOUGH Show, I do want to make sure that you know that as a listener to the show, you do get the exclusive code for 6 weeks of free training on MTNTOUGH. All you need to do to use that code is go to MTNTOUGH.com, click Start Free Trial, and enter the code MOUNTAINPOD. That's MTNPOD. That is going to get you going for 6 weeks for free on the MTNTOUGH Plus app. Shifting gears now to today's guest. On the show today, we have Jason Khalipa. Jason is an impressive human being, and he's doing a lot of stuff very similar to what we do here at MTNTOUGH. Early on in his career, he was the fittest man on earth at age 22, competing in 8 consecutive CrossFit Games from 2008 to 2015. So physically an absolute specimen, but his life has changed as we are here in 2025, as he's spending a lot more time getting men to rise up not only physically, mentally, spiritually, but also nutritionally. A great, great human and a really great conversation. So please stand by for Jason Khalipa.
You know, I host weekly men's clubs in a parking lot, and I've learned so much just by doing that. Fitness is just such a tool to improve your life, and I feel like a lot of men do not take advantage of it enough. And that's the mission I'm on, is to share the benefits of fitness, not only in the way you look, not only in the way you feel, not only in the way that you know, blood markers, but more importantly, the way you show up for other people around you. And I think that. But anyways, you want to start riffing on some of this stuff?
Let's riff. Yeah, we're going.
Okay, we're going. Yeah, I mean, look, I've been very blessed that, you know, I started off in the traditional gym when I was 15, and I was introduced to CrossFit pretty early on. I was about 19, won the CrossFit Games early on, competed professionally for a decade. And during that time, you know, looking back on it in my life, it was really incredibly powerful for me, because I traveled the world meeting with people who are all on the same journey of like leveling themselves up through fitness.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I didn't realize it at the time, right? But you're just surrounded by people who are like, dude, they're using fitness, but then they're also trying to achieve things in business, in family, and whatever. Well, fast forward, you know, I also got into jiu-jitsu. I've gotten interested in tactical games, and just fitness is a huge part of my life to show up as a husband, as a father, and obviously as a business owner. And hosting these weekly men's clubs, you know, we get about 40, 50, sometimes up to 100 guys in a parking lot with just sandbags to work out every weekend. It's completely free. And all we're trying to do is just connect guys shoulder to shoulder, do something hard, break down the barriers, and then go grab coffee after. And you'd be shocked, man. Well, you wouldn't be shocked, but I think people would be shocked to know just how jacked guys can get in a short period of time.
Yeah.
And just how incredibly important it is to foster connections through shared suffering with another guy. Man, I've just watched these dudes. It's so funny because we take a picture every week after the men's club, and we typically do it with our shirt off. And if you compare a year ago's men's club to this year, to like last weekend's, I mean, it's incredible. It's
Unreal.
incredible. And it can happen fast for guys. So if you're not on the path right now, let's get you on the path.
That's incredible, man. And it doesn't take much, just you throwing some sandbags in a parking lot, getting guys together. But guys are generally, in the general public, struggling big time with isolation. They're very isolated. They don't have any buddies. They don't have anyone pushing them. They don't have anyone sharpening them. But it doesn't take much to get that train rolling.
Yeah, exactly. I like to think about it as this like kind of never zero mentality. And the never zero mentality is just don't let your momentum get to zero. Like if you go out and go for a ruck, if you go for a walk, if you do burpees, you just have to do something to keep your momentum going. Because the problem with a lot of guys is they were on the path, collegiate athlete, high school athlete, they were on the path. Then they got busy, they got a job, they had a family. This is typically what we run into. And fitness falls by the wayside. And the problem is that it's really difficult to start back up again. But if you just start tomorrow and do something, then more breeds more. It earns your confidence. And now all of a sudden, it's like pushing a sled. Once you get it going, you can kind of keep it going. But the first little step is hard. So tomorrow, the recommendation is, I tell everybody this, like just go do 45 burpees. Wake up 10 minutes early, go do 9 burpees a minute for 5 minutes. You get 45 in. Why 45? It's enough to suck, but not so much that it seems incomprehensible to do. And boom, next thing you know, you're on the path again. You're one workout away from being back on the path.
Game changer. Yeah, I can't really like verbalize sometimes how important this is to men. We actually we posted the video this morning, but through Mountain Tough, we built a relationship last year with the guys down at Ranger Regimen, specifically 375, which is down in Georgia, Fort Benning. And we went down and spent some time with them last year, did like some training, shared some knowledge about high elevation mountain fitness, because there's always guys getting deployed into mountain environments. Those guys have like an amazing strength coach, an amazing program, but we're able to add a little bit from the mountain perspective. And then we went back this year, and this year we went back for the same thing, but really to dive into their culture and what makes like the Ranger culture so special. And so we were really looking at it from that lens this year, and we're looking at these guys, and these guys are young. I mean, a lot of them are 22, 23, 24. Some of the 23-year-olds are in charge of the lives of like 60 other men. And so not only are they young, extremely physically fit, but they're phenomenal leaders at a very young age with a lot on the line. And so we're looking at that culture and asking a lot of questions about culture. And it's so driven by the fact that everyone there is pushing everyone else. And
Right.
So they're pushing each other physically to be better, mentally to be better, intellectually to be better. When they walk through the parking lot of like the Ranger grounds, if they see a piece of trash on the ground, they pick it up because they care so much about their place, their environment. But then when we really started boiling it down to like, okay, how is this place actually so special? It's like this love for the guy next to them. It's the love for their brothers.
It's the brotherhood, right?
Man, and we at Mountain Tough, we live in a pretty special bubble. Like we have this human performance facility. We train hard together every single day. But then even going to that next layer and seeing those guys, you're like, man, this is so critical. It's so critical to have good guys around you that are pushing you. And if you don't have it, you have to find a way to get it.
Dude, I get the question all the time, because I put up a post on social media. I went kind of, I guess you'd call it viral-ish about the men's club. So I've gotten a lot of people asking me like, how do you start this? How do you start this? And I'm like, guys, you're overthinking it. Like even by asking, you're trying to find an excuse not to. Just text a friend, go knock on a neighbor's door, and go do some push-ups and burpees together, and like start there, and then invite your friends. But like, I think to your point, and like Ranger Regimen, Special Forces, I work a lot with law enforcement. And what you find is that the culture comes from camaraderie, and it does come from a place of care and love. But there is some power in like kind of giving somebody shit if they've fallen off the path. Like, hey man, like we got to get you up, especially if your life is dependent on their ability to be able to perform. Like what I've seen in these units is that they do need to foster that level of like, dude, we all got to be great. Same with the firehouse. It's like, man, if you're not training, like you're a liability and not an asset. That's a problem. Taking that into how that impacts, traditional people is like, if every weekend you're using this as an anchor to get with other guys to train, then during the week you hold yourself accountable because you know that weekend you have that anchor and you got to go show up and you got to go be present. And they're going to talk to you about how your training's been, how's life been. And, I think for me, my training has really evolved from trying to be the fittest on earth to win the CrossFit Games to now it's like I want to train hard so I can protect and provide. And that even it's in itself has evolved for me when I talk about it, where I think with protect, with provide, people have like an instant like something comes up in their mind of what that means, right?
Yep.
Maybe for you with your background, maybe when you think of the word provide, it might mean some type of like hunting expedition that you're providing food. I'm just using it as an example. But like for me, protect means my ability to run, jump, climb, lift, sure, if necessary, fight, and if really necessary, shoot. But like, I mean, those are such fringe cases, but the ability to, as a dad, run, jump, climb, lift, sprint, that's so important to me. And then fitness at the cornerstone of that. And then provide, sure, there's the hunting element of putting food on the table. There's the financial element of providing money. But there's also this idea of providing experiences and being able to do stuff with your kids. And it's like, if you don't have the fitness to be able to go for a walk with your wife, if you don't have the fitness to be able to go play with your kids, like that's a problem. And fundamentally, you need to solve it by training. So that's my core values now, is my ability to protect and provide for myself, my family, my community.
It's so critical too, because I think that is so good, because I also believe that if you connect that with a faith perspective, I think that God needs you to be ready for certain things. And when he knocks on that door with something that he's calling you to, or something that he needs you to do, if you're not ready, then he's going to look for someone that is, and you don't want those opportunities in life to pass you by. And so like being physically and mentally ready for that next calling that he's going to knock on your door with, like you do not want to miss that.
That's an interesting take. Like when you say that, are you thinking like, hey, there's a situation where you need to go help somebody? Are you thinking it's like your next vision for your business, your next relationship? Like when you say that, I'm really curious, like, because I hadn't thought about it through that lens. But from a faith perspective, being mentally and physically fit so that when God calls, you're ready. What do you think about when you think that in particular? Or is it all those things that I'm saying?
I think of big things in like big macro viewpoints, and that experience comes from my own life. So like, I think for me, I think God talks to every person a little bit differently. For me, the style that he tends to use is kind of like hitting me in the side of the head with a 2x4 with some of these like big initiatives he wants me to go after. And then once they're like heavy on my heart, now I know that it's an obedience moment. So when it's heavy on my heart, now I know that if I don't do it, I'm being disobedient to what he's asking me to do. If I do it, I'm being obedient. And so in my life, I've had a couple of those big ones. Pre-Mountain Tough, God straight up called my wife and I to Uganda. So we went to Uganda to rescue kids that were coming out of the civil war that was led by Joseph Kony, who is this infamous warlord. But that one obviously was, if I wasn't physically and mentally ready, there's no way we would have been able to do that. It was like 24/7 work. It was 24/7 adventure. It was physically demanding. And so like you had to be ready. Recently, he did the same thing to me, where through Mountain Tough, through this podcast, he really started exposing me to like domestically what's going on in the counter trafficking space with trafficking in the United States. And so the more I saw that it was happening, not internationally, but in our own backyard, he started like putting that heaviness on my heart. And I have 2 young daughters at home, so it's like I have to do something. And so now Mountain Tough has been active in fighting trafficking going on in the United States. We're doing a bunch of work with Covenant Rescue Group, but same thing. Like if I wasn't physically ready for that, I wouldn't have been able to do it. If I wasn't mentally ready. And so I think we have to be up at that 80-90% level all the time, because you never know like what God's going to ask you to do next.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd be curious, like financially ready too. Like,
Mm.
so it's a really interesting take because so in 2016, my daughter was diagnosed with leukemia, and I always looked at it like if someone had to get this diagnosis, like, all right, it's us. Like, we were financially in the best position, we were physically capable, we had a family that was very tight knit, we had a lot of support, and I was grateful that we had refined our relationships, worked really hard to put us in a position where I felt that way when that news came. But it's almost like taking it a step further. I mean, to your point, right? It's like ready when God calls. It's interesting. I hadn't looked at it necessarily through that same lens.
Mm.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Your leukemia point is spot on too. I think like what you're talking about in the lifestyle you live, it does kind of remind me of like the building bricks daily. And so people talk about like that fortress philosophy where through your community, through your fitness, through your focus on providing and protecting, you kind of have this ability to stack a brick around your life each day. And if you're not doing that training, whether it's physical or mental, you're not stacking a brick. If you are, you're stacking a brick and you're building this fortress. And the fortress is helpful because adversity is coming for us all in one way or the other. So like we're either in adversity right now, we just got through it, or we're about to enter it. And if you're building those bricks each day, like you experienced, you're in a much better position.
Yeah, I like that too. I'm just writing that down. I like that, building the fortress. You know, the way I like to look at it is like, yeah, you're building a hedge, because you never know. I mean, we have a train hard code, and the first part of the train hard code is that life is going to be hard. Like that's the first thing. Is like if everyone can just wrap their head around the fact that life will be hard, I think it just makes everything else that much better. And my dad taught me that at a really young age. He came here from Iran. His family was basically they had to leave Iran during the revolution, and everything was taken from them, everything. And he would always teach me from a young age, like a variety of things, but in particular, like, dude, life's gonna be hard. So like when it's good, enjoy it. And when it's bad, let's get through it. But adversity is gonna strike and it's gonna be tough. And that's our first rule for train hard is like the reason why we train is because we want to be mentally and physically sharp because we know stuff is gonna come. Like we know it. It's not if, it's when.
Mm.
And that could be a divorce, that could be a job, that could be a sick kid, that could be all kinds of stuff, right? But like what's in our control today is training so we could be as, capable as possible,
How have you
building that fortress.
how have you been able to start passing down some of those principles and philosophies to your own kids now?
I mean, I think they hear us talk about it quite a bit. My son's 11, my daughter's 14. So they're old enough where like they get it. Um, there has been quite a bit of adversity exposed to for our family. And so we have talked about those as building blocks, as learning lessons, as growth potential. And I think they see the way that we use fitness every day, my wife and I, as a tool to develop mental toughness and overcome adversity. And, I think for children, how old are your girls?
They're 12 and 10.
Yeah. I think for children, it's so important to expose them to micro doses of adversity. I just think it's critically important. And I think sports and fitness is probably the best way. I'm sure there's other ways too, but it's just the risk to reward is pretty small. So like for example, if you're my daughter this morning, we played water polo because she's going to high school. And there's a little bit of adversity there, right? She's doing 100-meter laps and she might not want to do it, but she overcomes it. She gets it done.
Mm-hmm.
Worst case, she doesn't overcome it. She doesn't finish the laps and we move on. Like it's not like the adversity is within, we could regulate it, right? And I think, but every day, if you continue to do that with the kids through sport and through fitness, they start to learn how to overcome hardship and challenges so that when that comes up in real life, which it will, they're better prepared for it. I think this whole idea and this notion that like, sheltering your kids so much, I think it's really unfortunate. You have to expose them to hard things because eventually they're going to get kicked in the stomach and you need them to have the mindset tools to learn how to overcome it. And I think it's your job as a parent to help slowly, contributing to that. You know what I mean?
Hey guys, I did want to interrupt for a quick minute right here and let you know about some supplements I've been taking. I did shy away from supplements for a long time. I was always cautious about what they were made out of, where they were from, and who the team was behind the brands. But over the last couple of years, I've got to meet the team at Mountain Ops from top to bottom, and they are an amazing group of humans. I've got to know the CEO, Trevor Farnes, really well, and he is a mission-focused individual that cares about humans living a better quality of life so that they can have that abundant life. So over the last couple of years, he has helped me add some things that have changed the game for me. One of those things that I've added is creatine from Mountain Ops. It helps me maintain some muscle mass, but also it's a big player in cognitive function, one of the most researched supplements out there. Also, I've added reds, greens, and protein, all from Mountain Ops. What I found as a busy professional, always on the run, I do eat a whole foods diet for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but on the go, it's hard to get enough vegetables, fruits, and protein. So I've added that from Mountain Ops, and it has significantly changed the game. I can feel it in my performance. I haven't got sick for a long time, and I can certainly feel it in my mental clarity as well. The last thing I've added is the Mountain Tough Hydrate product for the backcountry, for hunting season. When I'm in the hills, I do run short on those electrolytes. We even have a Mountain Tough flavor, the Mountain Tough Lemon Lime Hydrate, and that is a game changer for hydration in the backcountry. So I keep it really simple. That is all I've added to my protocol, and it has certainly helped me, and I certainly believe in the team and the culture behind Mountain Ops. They have started an initiative that's been around for a while called Conquer Hunger. Conquer Hunger is giving meals to hungry kids that aren't getting enough food, and they've given out over 6 million meals plus to kids through their Conquer Hunger initiative. So every order that happens at Mountain Ops, a percentage of that order goes to Conquer Hunger. So certainly an incredible company, an incredible culture. As a listener to the show, you do get an exclusive offer to Mountain Ops, so make sure you check that out. The offer is incredible as a first-time purchase at mountainops.com. So build your order if it's your first time. They are offering you a 20% exclusive discount. All you need to do is enter the promo code Mountain Tough, all one word, all caps, for 20% off your first order at mountainops.com. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's like the mental toughness like breakdown, if you really look at like what creates mental toughness, it is repeatedly doing hard things. And if we don't have our kids doing that, and it's harder on our kids because you don't want your kids to go through a ton of hardship. But if we remove all hardship out of their life, man, they're going to be soft.
Absolutely. And I think every kid is different. Every parent's different. I always think when it comes to kids and parenting, it's really important to talk with nuance, because every child, I'm sure your two girls, they're not that far apart in age. They're both the same sex, and they're probably pretty different, I imagine,
Yeah,
right?
way different.
My children, obviously boy and girl, a little bit further apart. So of course they're different, right? And I think because of that, we have to treat it as such, like with self-defense, as an example. I work with my son much different than I work with my daughter on that. And with adversity training and overcoming hardship, I treat her a little bit different than him, because she has had life experiences that have been very, very, very difficult. And so I'm a little bit more soft, I guess, for lack of a better term, because she's already been exposed to so much. So it's just learning in the kid,
For sure. Shifting gears a little bit here, if you get into all the work that you're doing, all the conversations that you're having, all the guys that you get to meet, if you think about like a state of the union on American men, a state of the union on how are American men doing? Are they getting better? Is the problem getting worse? What are your kind of thoughts on the status, the state of your typical male father, working professional? What are your thoughts there?
I think it's really important that I note that I am surrounded by a lot of very gritty, tough, successful guys with a similar mindset as me. I think that's important to note. Just kind of giving color to it. The other day, my son deadlifted 2 wheels for the first time. So 225, right? And it was a big moment for me. It was like, wow, like that was cool.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, bro, I was like, that's a big deal. Like, I was like, most guys in the country cannot lift what you just lifted. And the way he looked at me really taught me a lot. He goes, what are you talking about? And he goes, Dad, everybody we know can lift this. And it's like his perception is his reality, right? All the guys that come to the garage, everybody that goes to the gym, all the guys at the men's club, of course they can lift 225 pounds like you can off the ground, right? But his perception was like, everybody could do that. But the reality is that's not true. So my perception is that guys are in a better place than we were a couple of years ago, where we're not so much like villainized for being a guy. But at the same time, we need to help men remove the crutch and distractions. And we need to help them, show them the path, because you have a lot of guys that are easily getting distracted right now. You can get distracted by drugs, alcohol, women. There's a lot of distractions, and it's very easy to get access to. I mean, look at sports gambling as an example. You used to have to go to a specific place to do that. Now you can get on your phone anywhere in the world. Think about that same thing with porn addiction, alcohol, drugs. And so I think men need to be more intentional right now, and they need to intentionally surround themselves with guys that are going to help level them up. And I don't think that's ever necessarily not been the case, but I think now, because of how easy it is to be complacent and to get distracted, we need to be ever present. And so I'd say the state of the union is, I am surrounded by a lot of guys who want to be better, but that's not the norm. The norm is a lot of complacency, and I am on a mission to get men off the couch and doing something, because I think they're missing out as dads and as husbands. That's the biggest fail, is a guy looking back 10 years from now and not reaching his potential as a father, because he came home, he was tired after work, he had no energy, he was just, came home, had 3 beers, went to bed. Wasn't a terrible guy, was like never like nothing crazy, but never reached his potential because he wasn't doing the things he needed to do to train so that he could show up with the energy, the enthusiasm, and the clear mindset for his family. That's what I'm on a mission to do. And I think a lot of guys fall into that category.
Yeah, I agree. We did a study last year where we just looked at like some of these statistics, and there was one that just blew everyone's mind, and it's 11%. Only 11% of adult American males can do one strict unassisted pull-up. And so 90% of American males can't do one unassisted strict pull-up. I mean, that is a revealing statistic about the state outside of these like fitness bubbles that we get the chance to live in.
Yeah, and I think that's really important for us to note, right? Is that we are in a fitness bubble. I mean, frankly, full disclosure, like on my podcast or this podcast, the people that are listening to it, a lot of them are already on the same path as you and I, right? And it's like, how do we get outside of this? There's millions and millions and millions of men who need to see the value of fitness. And I think one of the disadvantages of the fitness space is done. And if you're a guy out there who's listening to this podcast and you have friends who aren't on the path, I would encourage you to send them this podcast and have them listen to this concept right here. The biggest problem with the fitness space, I've been in since I was 15, is that we have tried to complicate things. We've tried to do these things for business. The reality is that all you need to do is get off the couch and start walking tomorrow. The next day, maybe do some burpees, go to the ground, come back up again, and repeat that over and over and over again. And if you do that, I mean, dude, here's the thing. This fires me up. We did a challenge not that long ago. We had guys for 45 days do 45 burpees a day, remove alcohol, kick off the morning with 45 grams of protein. If that's all you did is stop drinking for 45 days, do 45 burpees a day, and start the day with 45 grams of protein, you will see such a dramatic change in the way you look and the way you feel that you'll be forced to continue that. And so, guys, we're lucky. You know, women have it much harder to get in better shape quickly. Guys, we could get in shape quick. So if you're not doing it, start those 3 things. 45 burpees a day, cut out alcohol, and start the day off with 45 grams of protein. I could dive into why more on that, but do that and you're going to get jacked.
So simple. Yeah. That's all you have to do.
That's it. That's it. I mean, and obviously there's additional layers to that. If you want to get in, you know, strength training, of course, like, but all I'm saying is for most guys, most of the time, it comes down to they're drinking too much. So it impacts their sleep, and they need to remove or reduce it significantly to see what they could reintroduce. I'm not saying you shouldn't drink or can't drink. That's fine. But if it's impacting your sleep, the way you show up for your family, the way you show up at work, you got to start readjusting what moderation looks like for you. Mm-hmm. And kickstarting the day with protein is so important because a lot of guys will wake up, they'll have a cup of coffee, they won't eat until 2:00. And when they do, they're going to grab the first thing they find because they're starving. If you prioritize getting in 45 grams of protein to kick off the morning, eggs, bacon, meat, you name it, it allows you to make better nutritional choices as the day goes on. That's why that's so important.
Yeah. And you're full. You're not starving all morning.
Right. Because the idea is, look, you're going to get hungry and that's fine. But it's when you're starving and you just like, and I know there's levels to starving as well, but you guys get the point of like, then you're just going to grab the first thing you find, a bag of chips. You're going to grab shit. Instead, if you kick off the morning with 45 grams of protein, and if you prioritize that per meal, dude, you're rock solid.
Personally, I have like a big question for you that I struggle with seeing where you land on this one, but yeah, like our business models are similar. We're both trying to fire a lot of men up, and that's phenomenal. And at Mountain Tough, I absolutely love firing men up and seeing them transform, seeing them change the trajectory of their life, seeing the testimonials come in of, you know, complete life change. They have a battle to fight, an adventure to live, a beauty to rescue. They're cutting out alcohol. They're doing well. But I would say one thing that personally I'm not great at, which is kind of, I think, a key component to this whole American man crisis, is when men really close to me, men around me personally, like in the office, in town, in our community, that are off the path. I find it like super, super frustrating and annoying, especially like with all the information that is out there, is like, how can you just not get started? We all know kind of these simple things we should be doing, which is an interesting dichotomy for me, because like someone remote, I love like seeing like on a podcast like this, how can we light a fire under this guy? But you have a guy right next to you that's kind of pulling you down. Like, how do you fire that guy up? Or do you feel the same thing that I'm feeling sometimes?
Yeah. So I've had to like really come to terms with this one in particular. And where I land on it now is that I'm going to pull and not push. So I think there's different rules of thought here. And I think just the type of person I am, I'm like relatively non-controversial. Like I'm not trying to beat people down. Like, sure, if you're law enforcement and you chose to put on the badge and you are not on the path, I'm going to share with you like, dude, you have a duty to train hard so you can get home to your family. Like you need to be the hardest guy in the room to kill. Like I'll share that with him because he's chosen to take on this line of work, that no one made him become a law enforcement officer. I will also say that to a dad. I'll be like, look, dude, you chose to become a dad. And as with that, you took on an obligation to be healthy and not be a liability for your family. Like you need to be there. But that's as far as I'll go in terms of like aggressive push. What I'll really try and do is just be a beacon. And I think the question I'd ask you and I'd ask myself is like, if any of your friends or family wanted to get on the path, girl, guy, you name it, do they know that you're a resource for them? Like I'm asking you, like, does everybody in your ecosystem know that you're the fitness guy and that you can help them get on the path if they're off of it?
Yes.
Like, I imagine yes, right?
Yes.
And I had to come to terms with that myself because early on in my career, you know, you figure I got introduced to fitness at 15. I started my first gym at 21. So I mean, I'm pretty young starting a gym. And my life perspective was very narrow, right? My wife and I met when we were 14. So, when I opened the gym, I'm an engaged dude, I'm an engaged guy with no kids, and I live in the gym. So my perspective is everybody should be drinking soda water and eating paleo and training CrossFit, and nothing else is even humanly remotely an option.
Yeah.
For the next 10 years, I'm traveling around the world and I'm meeting people with similar vantage points. And what I found was that I would push people away because I just came off too strong in my conviction.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that success is getting people on the path. Success isn't like, if I push too hard, they're going to just go away and never come back. And so I had to tell myself, does everybody in my circle, all my friends, all my family, do they know that I will always be here for them? Always, that I will be a support system? If they call, I'm going to come running at any time. And as long as the answer is yes, then I just let it go. Because otherwise, I've found that it's just hindered my relationships too much. And yeah, that's kind of a long-winded way of saying it. Like, I think the solution is, for any guy listening, if everybody knows you're the guy and you've done a good job pulling, saying, guys, come with me, let's go do this, then just let it be.
That's super helpful. That's incredibly helpful, because I think my storyline was similar, but just from a completely different niche. That, like, younger, it was just all about archery elk hunting for me, and it was this obsession with archery elk hunting. And there's so much good in that, just like you, like that built a platform for me, just like CrossFit built a platform for you. And as I've gotten older, that aperture on your life changes, and you realize that for me, like, hunting wasn't the end game. For you, CrossFit wasn't the end game. That was just like a blip. It was something incredibly helpful, but there's so much more to life. There's so much more in terms of what we're able to do for our legacy, what we're able to do for our family, what we're able to do that makes, like, generational impacts, like how our kids are raised. The father that we are to them is going to not only impact them, but it's going to impact the next several generations. So that aperture does start to change, and it starts to change, especially when we think about, like, our interpersonal relationships.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I, we struggle with this a little bit because, you just get so wrapped up. And again, I was young, I was traveling, I was competing, I was all in all the time, and everybody around me was all in all the time. It'd be like, with you, with hunting, it'd be like, imagine, like, the people you're surrounded by, like, their vantage point is one way. Then you take someone who's never gone hunting, never experienced what you experience, and they just can't relate. It's very difficult, right? Mm-hmm. And I think my wife and I, we went through a time where I was just too pushy, and it started pushing her away. And she didn't want to do it for me. She wanted to do it for herself. And I totally get that. Like, she shouldn't try and get in better shape for anybody, right? Like, she should do it because she wants to do that. And once I laid off and I let her kind of do her thing, dude, now she's found the phenomenon, like, she's found her own purpose and drive. She didn't need me to keep kind of progging her,
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think men too, men are generally really terrible about idols, and we'll find almost, anything to idolize. And once we find that, we can really make it an obsession, and we can go from one idol to the next. And so I think that, for me, when I was younger, that idol was backcountry archery elk hunting. And it was like, if you're not successful, then you're not successful as a man. And you still see that with a lot of younger hunters, where, like, if they're not harvesting a beautiful bull elk with their bow and they can't post that photo on Instagram this fall, then they feel like a failure. They feel like a loser. Where when you get older, you realize that's not the case at all. And it can't be that can't be your identity. Your identity has to be bigger than that. It has to be bigger than you. One of the keys to maximizing your workout is to make sure that you're eating clean and putting the right fuel in your body. Mountain Tough has preached this since the beginning. You're also seeing a shift right now nationally where we're calling out hidden additives, hidden substances in our food. As a hunter, when you process your own meat, you control everything. No additives, no shortcuts, no compromises. Just clean fuel built for peak performance. My family has been processing our own wild game for years using field-tested, hardcore processing equipment from the team over at Meat. Meat offers world-class grinders, stuffers, slicers, everything you need to turn your wild game into clean, high-octane fuel. No gimmicks, just high-quality tools that get the job done, and they're backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Take control of your life. Take control of your health. Click the link in the podcast description below to claim your special offer from Meat and start fueling the right way today.
Well, your identity can't be associated with something like your success or failure at a hunt. If that changes the way you feel as yourself as a human, like you have to do some deep reflection. I mean, use me as an example. I competed professionally in CrossFit for 10 years, and I would, I think most would say that I was at the top of the sport for 10 years and, was on the podium multiple times, won the CrossFit Games, and it was easy for that to become part of who I was as my identity. I'm a successful person because I'm winning. And then when my daughter got sick and I stopped competing, right? I'm glad that I hadn't just wrapped up my identity in only competing, right? I was a husband, I was a father, I was a business owner, I was a son. I had other things that I identified as, because that can get taken away from you very quickly. And your success or failure on a hunt is really, in some ways, outside of your control, right? Just like the winning or losing the CrossFit Games. And granted, there's levels to this, right? Of course, it's within your control to train, just like with you, with hunting, like there's a lot of things that are in your control. But at the end of the day, you can't have your self-purpose, your self-worth be associated with something that's kind of superficial in nature. Like it's not a core value. It's something you do. It's not who you are.
Yeah, and identity, I mean, it can be so powerful, negative or positive. I mean, you'll see big crashes, especially in sport where, someone's whole identity is wrapped up in that sport, and then, they blow an ACL and their whole life comes to a crash.
Yeah. I mean, now, I'd say a lot of my identity, a lot of my purpose, you talk about, God's plan. And I do feel this is kind of a newer thing for me. Probably the last year or so, I've been, maybe a little bit longer, been exploring a lot of faith. And it's like, I do feel like there's a path, there's a calling to impact guys in a really meaningful way. And that gives me a lot of fulfillment and a lot of purpose. And, I've been doing this men's club for 2 years in a parking lot, and I've been doing it for free just because I feel a deep calling to do so. And those are the kind of things that I think as a man, you could really get behind, right? Because they have legs and you feel like there's a lot of fulfillment there. When you receive messages from guys who say that because of the things you're doing, there's a lot of impact, that's powerful. It makes me feel like I'm doing something right.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And it's creating those ripple effects that are affecting all those families, all those guys that are showing up. I mean, it's affecting their workplace, their ability to be good fathers, husbands. You never know where that's going to lead. And,
a lot of guys that get in trouble, their fathers are absent, right? They grow up in a fatherless home, and they need some type of male, they need someone to guide them, to show them what it means to be a good man and how you treat people and how you treat women and how you treat others. It's really interesting, raising a young boy myself, thinking about the kids that would be bullies in high school. They were always the ones that had the least amount of confidence, and they had to gain their confidence by breaking other people down. And yesterday I put up a post on my stories. I was boxing with my son and just said, like, I'm building him up so that he doesn't have to break people down. Basically, like, the more we could build up our children to be self-confident through sport and training, the less I ever feel like he needs to break somebody down to build himself up because he's confident in who he is. And I think as men, it's like our responsibility is to think about this as generational change. I think that there's a lot of young boys who need that discipline. They need that confidence so that they could show up as good, strong young men who could do both things. One, defend themselves and defend other people and be that beacon and that protector. And two, be loving, caring, compassionate. And I don't think those are mutually exclusive. I think you could be both of those things. And that's what I'm trying to do with my son.
Oh, that's beautiful. And you mentioned you've started to think about faith more and differently over the last year or so. Do you have like a specific faith you're following? How are you defining faith in working with your guys from the faith perspective?
Oh, that's a good that's a good question. So I was raised, I went to private Catholic school my whole life, and I was very much so brought up in the church of like stand up, sit down, say this, do this, blah blah blah, and then move on. And it really jaded me because I didn't look at faith or God in terms of a relationship. I looked at it in terms of transactional. I would show up to church, do this, do this, do this, do this, leave. And I'd say, I've always kind of had an inkling, interest. I would start reading, a couple of the Gospels and then kind of turn off. But I'd say the last couple of years, last year in particular, I felt a deep earning with prayer. Mm-hmm. I have found like I'm really trying to develop a relationship as if God is a friend of mine. And currently what I'm doing is every morning I'm going through the Bible. I started off I've already read through the Gospels. So now I'm starting off in the Old Testament and I'm just going page by page. And some of that stuff is pretty dark and pretty weird and whatever, but I want to read it. So I started off at Genesis and I just kept going through. And so I'm reading the Bible. I'm trying to explore more, but I do feel it's very interesting. I do feel like God has been calling me and in a variety of ways. I'll give you an example. So I was like, a friend of mine was like, hey, the work you're doing with men, it reminds me of the Bible verse, iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another. And so he said that to me, and this is like a while ago. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I started YouTubing it, Googling it, kind of trying to understand more about what that meant. I went to the specific phrase, researching it. And so I'm sitting in the sauna and I was thinking about texting a few people. I was like, it's kind of on my heart, but it was early. It was like 6 a.m. I was like, I don't want to text that person. I want to text that person. So I get out of the sauna. It's like maybe 30 minutes later. And I was like, it's really on my mind to text this one guy. And his name's Sal Di He actually has a podcast called Mind Pump. I text him. I was like, dude, this like Bible verse is really on my heart. It's like, and for some reason I feel like I had to text you this. And he goes, weird. I'm wearing that shirt right now. And on him, he had on it, he's in his car, he pulled over or whatever, took a picture, and it said Proverbs 27:17 or whatnot, like iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another. I was like, wow.
Dang.
Like, have you ever heard of that on a shirt in your entire life? I've never seen it on a shirt in my entire life. And yet this guy, at the very moment I text him, is wearing that shirt. Fast forward, okay, this is like 6 months later. Fast forward. I get a Bible in the mail. Beautiful leather-bound Bible. Beautiful. And it says Proverbs on it. On the text, it says iron sharpens iron in leather script.
Ooh.
I call the guy who sent it to me. I'm like, bro, what is this? He's like, I felt compelled to send you a Bible. I was like, okay, thank you. But dude, do you know like this iron sharpens iron just keeps coming up in my life? He goes, nah, I've never heard, like, tell me more about it. So sure enough, I shared with him the story and it's just, and then again, it came up another time. It's just like, sorry, not to go off long.
I love it, dude.
It just feels like again and again and again, there's like these signs, like, and I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to see what is the calling,
Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by, we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough Podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNPOD to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app. Yeah, it's God's like assignment on your life, and he's just continuing to show you that and surround you with those people, and it's how he works, man. It's like the relationship is we're resting in his sonship, and by resting in his sonship, like through his Holy Spirit, he's guiding us to those people. That's why you were like thinking about that guy, you were thinking about that guy because he needed you to reach out to him that day. And then just the affirmation of him wearing that shirt, that relationship is so amazing.
Yeah. So I think where I'm at with it is I'm like, and I don't know if this will ever change, by the way. I mean, I'm sure it will, is that I'm just exploring and constantly exploring and trying to learn and trying to create a relationship. I will also say that for people who aren't very like I'm not sitting here raising my hand and saying I'm the most devout Christian. I'm not saying that. I go to church periodically. I'm exploring, I'm learning, but here's one thing that has really changed my life is that every day I pray, and I pray out loud. And it is the one thing that I've been able to do in my life, like kind of like meditation, that I've been able to do. I've never been able to meditate in my life. I've never been able to be consistent with it, but I've been consistent with prayer. It just, something about it just makes me feel a lot of gratitude. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I could take on my day with better. And so if you're looking for a place to start on your journey, this is just my perspective, I would start by trying to have a relationship and praying, and in particular, praying out loud.
So good. Yeah, we at Mountain Tough, a lot of times we define it, our definition of it often is this bar stool analogy. So if you think about a bar stool, a typical bar stool is going to have 4 legs, and one leg for this analogy is like our physical strength. The other leg is our mental strength. The leg number 3 is our spiritual strength and health. And then that 4th leg for us is nutritional. And as men, if we only have one of or two of these areas of our life that we're focusing on and sharpening and that are strong, if I still put weight on that bar stool is going to fall over. It's going to crash. And so the weight in the bar stool analogy is these big chunks of adversity we're going to face. So something is going to put weight on that stool. It might be something with our marriage. It might be something with our children. It might be financial. It might be something with society. It might be something with a huge tragic like weather event. We never know where that weight is going to come from and when that weight is going to sit on that stool. But if we're super fit physically but weak mentally and spiritually, when I put weight on that stool, it's going to fall over. Mm-hmm. Or I mean, you see individuals that are extremely strong spiritually, but they're weak physically. If I put weight on that stool, it's going to fall over. And so I think as men, thinking about these 4 legs, and are we working on all 4? Are all 4 getting sharpened? Are all 4 getting sharpened every day? Are we getting 1% better across those 4 different pillars every day? That's going to be really critical, because we do know adversity is coming, and we can't just be strong in one area and weak in those other 3. And I think for me, that relationship with God through prayer also is like one of the strongest ways to keep that spiritual pillar strong.
Yeah, I mean, well, it sounds like you and I are like pretty aligned on many things through this show, right? And it's funny because the more you dive in, the more you realize that like a lot of all the things we're talking about, like when you surround yourself with like-minded guys, there's a lot of commonalities that start to come up. And through the pod, for a while we had guests on my podcast. Now it's a little bit more of like a home team. But most of the time when guests would come on and we'd have conversations with relatively high performers, faith would always be a part of what's going on. And it goes back to kind of like a core value, right? Of like having a deeper why, a deeper purpose, a deeper, who you are, right? Your success or failure is not based on just your hunt or your CrossFit Games. It's based on, your contribution, and faith is a major cornerstone of that. So it's definitely something that I'm diving into more and more and more. And I'm really excited about it. It's been exciting because I turned 40 in October, and I feel like I'm just now hitting my stride. And I hope a lot of guys can relate to this. Like when I was in my 20s, I had a lot of success financially. Obviously I had both my children. Through my 30s, went through some hardship with my kids, different things. You think you know a lot, but you really don't know as much. Now at 40, I feel like I have enough life experiences where I'm starting to kind of understand the importance of certain things, but I'm young enough where I could still feel like I can make changes, and I have the energy to go do cool stuff. So like, I feel like for a guy listening, dude, 35 to 55, those are going to be like golden times.
Yeah. Yeah, you have all that wisdom too, the wisdom of all the mistakes and the hard lessons.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what we're trying to do. It sounds like obviously we're on very, very similar paths. For us at Train Hard, it started off for me with brick and mortar gyms. And so I opened a lot of those, and we still have brick and mortar gyms. But then I wanted to try and start making an impact on men. And that's where Train Hard from an online perspective came to be. So I'm not quite sure when this podcast released, but we have 3 programs. We have different programs based on the goals. Our programs, I would say, if you asked me, hey, are our programs going to help somebody do a 6-day elk hunt? I think they wouldn't hurt, but they're not going to be as geared as your programs are, right?
Yeah.
Our programs in particular are geared with shorter duration workouts to help men become capable and look jacked, be capable, and act like an athlete. We have a variety of programs for that. But if you're, but from a hunting perspective, that's a completely different lane that we don't really focus on,
Love it. I love it, man. Well, Jason, thanks so much for jumping on. I love what you're doing, love what you're up to. It's inspiring, all you've done so far to help men and to get men fired up. And you're making it, with like the 45, 45, 45, you're making it simple and approachable, and guys all over the country can do stuff like that. And we know it's going to make a huge difference. So I really appreciate you, man. Really appreciate you jumping on the show.
Yeah, for sure. If anybody has any questions for me, Instagram at Jason Khalipa is a pretty good spot. A good spot. You can go to th.fit. That's our website. And basically Instagram, MTNTOUGH.fit. You can also check out, we have the Jason Khalipa podcast. We have a group of guys. We just riff on stuff. But yeah, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on the show to share certain perspectives. And if you're not on the path right now, get on it. Get on it, get on it, get on it. You know, there's no worse feeling than 10 years from now looking back and thinking you didn't reach your potential as a husband, as a father, because you weren't working out. Or if life threw a curveball at you and you had to go chase down your kid from running into the street and you couldn't do it. Imagine how you'd feel, right? Like, start training today so you could be the most capable guy on the planet.
For sure. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
What an awesome conversation with Jason. Remember, every single Mountain Tough episode, I want you guys to be thinking about what can you take away from this episode and apply to your life immediately that's going to have impacts right away, that practical approach. The golden nugget for me, for sure, on this episode with Jason was his 45 principle. And I think that if anyone is thinking about a life transformation out there, I do know the 45 principle is going to work and it is going to change your life right away. So the 45 principle is every morning when you wake up, you need to have a breakfast that has 45 grams of protein. And then for 45 straight days, you need to have no alcohol. And then every day you need to get 45 burpees. The way that Jason created that is so amazing because it is so simple. You have to not drink. You have to eat a breakfast with protein, and you have to do 45 burpees a day. Guys are losing like 40 or 60 pounds in 45 days just off the 45-day principle. So if you're looking for a little jump start and a jump start off the couch, I recommend that golden nugget. Thanks for being here, guys. Love you guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.